let's dive into some of this repertoire, because when I was watching your recordings, you had Brahms, second violin sonata, which is a dear favorite of mine because
Yeah.
that's actually one of the first Brahms sonatas I played with my wife in school.
No
And she's
way.
a pianist,
Yeah.
yeah. So I really connected, and actually when we were, when I was prepping for this interview to talk to you, I was like, "Oh, wait, she played Brahms' second violin sonata. Okay, let's check this out." And then she was like, "Oh," my wife was like, "Oh, well, wonderful colors. Oh, that's so great. Oh, I love this." Right?
Oh my God,
So
so sweet.
yeah, and then you also played Boxy Major, which I definitely
Mhm.
want to touch upon also because that's a gargantuan fugue. I know how difficult that fugue is, but I can see the stress on your face already. Just reminded of that
The
fugue.
fugue.
But
Yeah.
I do want to talk about the repertoire because is do you select the repertoire, or does the jury members, like, once you finish the pre-screening, do they like select the repertoire for you and you kind of have to present it during the competition? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So and this is actually quite standard for most competitions. So the pre-screening, even the pre-screening, they have pretty like a specific repertoire that they require. Um, but once you get to the competition, they are quite specific about what they want. Sometimes, so most of the time, actually, I should say, let's say if you're playing Bach, they give you a list of Bachs that you're allowed to choose from. And Paganini is different. Paganini, you can just choose any Paganini. Um, and I think you could also choose Last Word of Summer by Ernst and also Milstein's Paganini or something. But either way, most of the time it's like, okay, here's a composer and this is a list of repertoire that you're allowed to choose from. So in the second round, let's say Brahms sonata, it was the romantic sonata category, I believe. So it was a list of romantic sonatas that you can choose from, and I chose Brahms sonata number 2. And you could choose. I mean, the list probably I would say is like, I don't know, 10 sonatas or something, and you could choose from that. And again, same thing with the final round concerto. You could choose, they give you a list, and the Mozart concerto. So it's, in a way, there is freedom because there is, they give you many, many options, and you choose the one that speaks the most to you. Um, but at the same time, it's not like you can just play anything. There's also a certain amount of time that they want you to play. They uh, and there's also a maximum where you're not allowed to go over that certain time. But so it's freedom in the sense that you can choose, from what piece from this particular composer they require to play from. But um, yeah, it's not like you can just, you know, decide your own program completely either. So I think this was actually quite a good balance in terms of the freedom to choose what I want to play, and also like the kind of composers and works and styles that they want to hear. But I think that's typically pretty standard for most international competitions. Um, I think I know maybe like one or two competitions that are like, okay, play half an hour of whatever you want to play kind of thing. But typically it's more like this kind of procedure. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's definitely certain parameters to the competition. It's not
Yeah.
like, you're kind of like out in limbo. You have to kind of choose whatever. I kind of like that. You have the
Yeah.
options. You're given the list. This is what the jury wants to hear in this competition. And then, you said 10 sonatas. So that's a healthy selection of like what
Oh,
you
yeah.
can do. It's not
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 and everybody has to play the same thing. You
No,
have
no, not at
which
all.
which which I appreciate because it's not so much about like the technical ability and like trying to micromanage the musicality of like 1 or 2 specific sonatas that the competition finalists choose. It's like,
Right.
okay, yeah, I have options, which is really nice.
Yeah, exactly. And also they talk about remember Jamie Laredo, when he's the head of the jury, he was talking about they chose this repertoire because they want to see different sides of you as a musician. So because let's say they say, okay, play anything you want for 30 minutes. You could play 30 minutes of one style, but they want to make sure that they hear all sorts of different styles, different periods of time, different composers. So that's why they have, okay, here's a romantic sonata, here's a classical sonata, here's, all of that kind of stuff.